Anara. From the channel that brought you family films like Con Air.
Well, how do you beat an intro like that? You tell me. But if I said to you Clear Obscure Expedition 33, this might be the third time I've mentioned that game this week on my channel. Well, it's made up of ex-Ubisoft devs. If I said to you Embark Studios, what would that bring to mind? That's correct, Kung Fu. Ex-DICE developers who worked at EA on some of the best Battlefield games ever, including Bad Company 1 and 2. And do you know who else joined the ex-DICE team now at Embark Studios? The ex-executive vice president himself, Patrick Soderlund. If that name doesn't ring a bell to you, then he's the guy that told everybody at the time that Battlefield 5, if you don't like the game, don't play it. Find cover!
Bloody move!
And fair enough, people heeded those words, and so he stepped down after. And guess who took his place? Vince Zampella. And that's the gentleman I will be talking about today, because I've mentioned this guy's name quite a few times. Yes, I'm something of a fanboy of Vince's. Why? Because the man is literally a genius. Now, is he the only video game developer genius out there? Of course he isn't. You've got Hideo Kojima. You've got many other people that can claim that title. But with Zampella, anything this guy touches turns to gold. Well, with the exception of Apex Legends, but I'll get into that point later on.
Excellent!
Now, while Battlefield 5 is considered by myself as the Batman and Robin of that franchise, BF 2042 didn't do much to assuage the fears of fans who were hoping for a really great multiplayer online experience. And back in 2021, when I gave a trailer reaction to BF 2042, there was a sequence which seemed to be heavily inspired by Spec Ops: The Line, which if you have never played that game, you ought to, where it's a third-player military shooter set in Dubai, a futuristic version of Dubai, and a sandstorm environment. And I couldn't. Can you blame the developers of DICE to try and take inspiration from that? Of course you can't. But anyway, that's neither here or there. Now, after the catastrophic failure of 2042, remember this game was released without a scoreboard, which was eventually reinstated somehow in the game, and it was replete with bugs and everything else thrown at it. Guess who they called in to save the day? That's right, Vince Zampella. Now, to give you a bit of a background on this guy, he started his career all the way back in 1997 for a small software firm called Game Tech in Florida, where he helps to develop video games as such and software, and even being Mr. Customer Service himself.
Hello, IT. Yeah, have you tried turning it off and on again?
And from there, Zampella's career just surged. He seat and destroyed Panasonic Interactive, even joining Sega for a short spell before settling down for the time being with 2015 Incorporated, where he helped to develop, along with Steven Spielberg, the Medal of Honor series. Now, I've never played those military shooters, but I understand they are highly revered among the community out there. Now, of course, much later on, Vince Zampella found himself working for Activision, which, oh boy, red flag alert, working on a new set of games called, wait for it, Call of Duty. Now, it wasn't until 2007 that we had COD 4 Modern Warfare.
Bravo team, the intel on this op comes from our informant in Russia. The package is aboard a medium freighter, Estonian registration number 52775.
Now, if you were asleep at the time or weren't paying attention on the radar, that news was seismic. I mean, it was bigger than that. I mean, right, we had Halo in 2001. Sure, that certainly made its mark on the gaming stratosphere. Then in 2006, we had Gears of War, which definitely launched to much universal acclaim. But honestly, when COD 4 Modern Warfare dropped, it was like a big dookie out of the sky. It was a hit everywhere. The promotion for it was fantastic, and certainly if you didn't play the game, you would have heard about its now legendary levels in Pripyat, all giddied up, Goodnight Susie, and that was my first mainline entry into the COD series. Now, of course, after the success of this game, what did Vince Zampella and his partner who he met at 2015, Jason West, decide to do? Was to negotiate with Activision about getting bigger bonuses for the next sequel of that game, to which Activision actually agreed. But again, we're talking about Activision here. We're talking about Bobby Kotick.
Captain Cuntface, too.
And the reason why Kotick agreed to the stipulations from West and Zampella that when COD 6 Modern Warfare 2 was in development, that it will be untouched, no interference by the studio themselves, Infinity Ward would have all control over that game coming out. Now, this sat well with the stakeholders, you know, the people that don't play video games, they just want to make a buck and move on to the next franchise to destroy. And Call of Duty, yes, I'm talking to you, modern day 2025.
Did she just fucking turn into Captain America?
Now, of course, when MW2 was released, it had even bigger acclaim and some controversy than the first game. You know what I'm talking about. That fourth mission, no Russian. If you haven't played it, then what the hell are you looking at me for? And by the way, you might be forgiven for thinking that these games use the Unreal Engine. They actually use an engine called ID3, which is a proprietary engine taken from the Quake 3 engine developed by the boys at id Tech, John Carmack and co. And of course, I've mentioned this before, but I got to show it to you again. This I picked up for less than £5 on eBay. I thought I was getting a special edition of Rage, but it wasn't. It was actually a 45-minute long Q&A between Morgan Webb and the id Tech boys, which is really, really fantastic. I know it's on YouTube. You can watch it there, but if you want to see a guy like me geek out about boys like them, then this is actually worth the purchase. A good way to preserve video game legacy, if you know what I mean. And at this point, ladies and gentlemen, the ugly rear and the head of Activision, Bobby Kotick, resurfaced one more time like Britney Spears to get rid of Western Zampella from Activision for, guess what? Insubordination.
Find out 2 executives are planning to break their contracts, keep the money you gave them, and steal 40 employees. What do? You fire them, Kotick said. Activision's high-profile court case against West and Zampella, along with 40 other former Infinity Ward developers, was settled in May this year before it could be heard by a trial.
Translated as, well, we couldn't be bothered to pay these two guys their due bonuses and salaries because we had a mega $1 million plus hit on our hands. But what did our boys do? They sued Activision. Activision countersued and lost. And then the formation of Respawn Entertainment thus begun in 2010. We had Titanfall 1, which was an Xbox exclusive for God's sake. And 2 years later, the critically acclaimed Titanfall 2 sequel, and thereafter the Jedi Fallen and Survivor series, and in between we had Apex Legends. Oh, and why do I groan and yawn at the mere mention of that particular title? Because it's set in the Titanfall universe. Not good enough, Mr. Zampella. We wanted a Titanfall 3, and we nearly got that as well, according to the rumors online, where a game was scrapped at Respawn Entertainment not too long ago, rumored to be Titanfall 3. Will that game ever be under the spotlight again? Well, only through rumors and conjecture, unfortunately. Now, you know what? I've got to talk about Modern Warfare 3 right here, otherwise known as COD 8 in the series. While that was in the early development stages, then when Zampella and West were initially beginning work on it, and then were obviously removed from Activision, people on Reddit have been asking the question, if those two were allowed to stick around and actually see that game through, what would it have been like? Because honestly, when I do replay that game, I do wonder if some of the chapters aren't just hurried along. Things feel rushed, don't they? But you know what? The lasting legacy of MW3 is that amazing Sam Worthington and Jonah Hill promo. If you've never seen it, that to me is what sells a military shooter. Back in the day, these two actors weren't exactly burning the pockets of people who would hire them. So to Activision, they were the cheapest actors they could find to help promote MW3. And it was a great success. And when you compare that to the promotional campaigns that COD now gives us in the form of Nicki Minaj and her skins to wear in Warzone, or in this case, 4 skins.
Playtime is over when Nicki drops in.
Fuck you, bitch. Hope you wind up alone.
Then I'm not surprised that Vince Zampella is sitting back in his throne at EA and giving Bobby Kotick and Activision the big middle finger, as they so rightly deserve. And Battlefield 6, acclaimed as the best-selling first-person military shooter of 2025, leaving its rival COD Black Ops 7 well and truly buried in that desert oasis somewhere out there in the Nevada plains. And on that note, folks, I will say this much. If you were me and if I were you, and when Bobby Kotick, that monstrous abnormality, dies, nobody's going to miss that guy. Because quite seriously, and in all seriousness here, folks, that man made everybody's life at Activision an absolute misery. Not giving them pay rises, giving himself one in the process. And then when I think about the clear obscure Expedition devs who left Ubisoft, what was going on there that made them leave and go and form their own brand new company, which obviously is making Ubisoft a laughingstock? And now, while it's easy to say that Vince Zampella is in a good place at EA now, filling the position that was vacated by Patrick Soderlund, I hope his future is a bright one over at EA and that he doesn't run into similar issues that he encountered with Activision. The only fear that I've got about all of this now, this continued success of the Zampella legacy, is that will Battlefield as a franchise be annually released, or will it be every 2 to 3 years? And on that one, ladies and gentlemen, if you were me and if I were you and you're still feeling blue, I'll catch you catching me for the return of the next video.
When the opportunity to do a Star Wars game came up, did Disney and Lucas and stuff, did they dictate like we want a story in this period in the Star Wars universe, or were you able to pitch where you wanted to tell a Star Wars story?
We pitched, and they have, the story group is great to work with. They also have a lot of opinions. It aligned up pretty well. At first, they were a little cautious about doing a Jedi story because, that's so precious. We were able to pitch them on it. Stig did a great job of kind of putting something together that just resonated well with them. And, ultimately, the game is called Jedi. So I think we succeeded and did a good job.
Faster. Here, I'm ready for you.
Like and subscribe, or get your nuts Krogan crushed on Kung Fu Hot Dog.